good news is that losing is not a full stop. It is, in fact, a call, a silent invitation from the unconscious for you to come back home, and home, in this case, is yourself. But this return is not automatic. It requires intention, presence, and above all, action. So now, let's set theory aside for a moment and dive into real, accessible practices that serve as bridges to your internal reunion. The first practice is brutally simple, yet profoundly transformative: the radical listening of silence. And here, we are not talking about meditation with relaxing music or apps with soft voices. We are talking about stopping, literally, without distractions, no phone, no agenda, no external stimuli, just you and the silence. It seems easy, but it is almost unbearable for those who are disconnected from themselves, because in the silence, all the internal voices you have learned to ignore start to scream. But that is precisely where the work begins. The initial discomfort is the price of reconnection. Another powerful practice is what Jung called dialogue with the unconscious, something you can initiate through deep journaling. Take a notebook and write everything that comes to mind without censorship, without trying to sound intelligent or coherent. Write as if no one would read it, because no one will. This exercise activates a kind of direct channel to the part of you that has been silenced for too long. And it is in this space that dormant truths begin to emerge. Sometimes they come in the form of memories, other times as anger, sadness, forgotten desires. And all of this needs to be welcomed, without judgment. Also include in your routine what we call rituals of symbolic reconnection. This can be a daily walk without music, where the goal is not to get anywhere, but simply to listen to what the body feels. It can be the act of cooking something with mindfulness as a gesture of care for yourself, or even the practice of saying no to something small, just to feel the strength of your own will being respected. These small gestures have immense power. They communicate to your unconscious that you have come back to exist and that you are ready to take back control of your own life. Another crucial point is the practice of progressive sincerity. Start to gradually test what it is like to live more aligned with what you truly think and feel. This does not mean going out and vomiting truths or cutting off relationships impulsively. It means observing where you most silence yourself and starting to express yourself there. It means identifying where you most pretend and, little by little, beginning to be true. Each micro-choice of authenticity strengthens the psychic structure that reconnects you with yourself. But know this: this path requires deconstruction, and deconstruction is frightening, because the more you start to live from yourself, the more you begin to displease others, especially those who benefited from your performance. And that is what we are going to talk about now. In the next part, we will face one of the most difficult and liberating stages of this process: the pain of disappointing others. Because it is inevitable, and paradoxically, it is the greatest sign that you are finally starting to live for real. If this message speaks to something you've been quietly carrying, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It expands on Jung's core ideas and gives you practical tools to reconnect with your true self. Link is in the pinned comment. No deep transformation happens without discomfort, and one of the most feared and inevitable is the discomfort of disappointing those around you while you were still performing. When you start to reconnect with yourself, when you begin to say no to what you previously accepted, when you start to set boundaries where there was only adaptation before, something changes, and others feel it, not always in a calm way. You start to notice this in the small reactions: the colleague who is bothered because you no longer wanted to fit in, the relative who is offended because you didn't follow the path they envisioned for you, the friend who is taken aback by your honesty, and most importantly, that unspoken look of disappointment that tries to make you revert to your old role. The truth is that when you start to live more truthfully, you break invisible agreements, emotional contracts that were never written but had been in effect for years. And here lies the central point. Most people are not disappointed in you. They are disappointed in the version of you that they themselves created. The disappointment is not with your truth, but with the image you maintained to sustain relationships that may have been unbalanced from the start. But this pain, which seems so cruel at first, is also a sign of rebirth. Because every time you disappoint someone by being true, you are confirming within yourself a new pact. A pact of loyalty to your own soul. This requires courage, because the natural impulse is to give in, to retreat, to apologize for being a bother, to go back to performing to preserve others' affection. However, there is a brutal detail. The price of avoiding this pain is too high. Avoiding disappointing others almost always means disappointing yourself. It means silencing legitimate desires, suffocating uncomfortable truths, and accepting to live in relationships based on conditioning and not on authenticity. Jung said that individuation is a process of separation, separating from the masses, from inherited values, from social roles that no longer serve. And that hurts, because for a time, you will seem strange, inconvenient, even selfish. But it is important to remember, there is no way to truly find yourself without losing what is no longer you. And over time, something magical begins to happen. The relationships that remain after this transformation become more real, more nourishing, because they are based on who you are, and not on what you offer as a mirror or shield. And new connections arise, now based on truth. People who resonate with your authenticity, not with your performance. This is the beginning of a new cycle. A cycle where success is no longer measured by applause, status, or external acceptance, but by something deeper, quieter, and more powerful. The ability to recognize yourself in the mirror and feel peace. And it is precisely with this image that we will conclude our journey. The conclusion of this path, where true success ceases to be a race to become an internal reconciliation. A life where you finally become whole again. Let's move together to the final part. In the end, it doesn't matter how many goals you've achieved, how many diplomas you have on the wall, or how many zeros appear in your bank statement. What really matters, and what truly weighs, is what you see when you stand in front of the mirror. Not the bathroom mirror, but the one of consciousness. The one you face in the silence of the night, when the masks fall, when the noise of the world ceases, and all that remains is you with yourself. Carl Jung reminds us that the soul has its own rhythm. It doesn't chase after goals. It isn't impressed by achievements. The soul wants truth. It wants integration. It wants wholeness. And if you spend your entire life trying to fit into external models of success, you inevitably sacrifice what would truly make you complete. Your authenticity. True success, then, is not a finish line. It is not a "I made it" plaque on the wall. It is a continuous process of internal alignment, a commitment to live with courage, even when the truth is uncomfortable, a pact with your own conscience, to not abandon yourself anymore, even if it means disappointing others, starting from scratch, or making decisions that no one will understand. And here's the secret that few have the courage to say: living your own truth hurts at first, but it liberates in the end. You may lose some people, some opportunities, even some stability. But you will gain something that nothing in this world can offer: internal integrity. And believe me, this is the foundation of any real happiness. If you've made it this far, it's because something in you is already awakening. Something in you has already understood that you can no longer continue living half-heartedly. And it is exactly this something that you need to listen to more closely from now on. Now, I want to hear from you. At what moment in your life did you feel you were losing yourself? Or better, what are you ready to change from now on? Write it in the comments. This is not just a gesture of engagement. It is an act of affirmation, a public step towards your truth. And if this video made sense to you, don't stop here. The next video is an important continuation of this journey. Watch it. Because the path of self-knowledge is long, but every conscious step you take is a silent victory over everything that tried to make you forget. See you there.